Dinosaurs. I love them, you love them, and once upon a time, Capcom loved them. Back in the late 1990s, Capcom was on top of the world with the Resident Evil franchise. RE1 was a runaway hit, earning both critical and commercial success and establishing the foundations for the modern survival horror genre, inspiring countless imitators, from Silent Hill to all the modern indie titles you see today. However, Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami wasn't satisfied at stopping there. Sure, Resident Evil 2 was bigger and badder than the first, but at its core it was the same haunted house of horror and thrills, and with Mikami being elevated to the position of producer and overseeing the development of 3 different Resident Evil projects, an idea began to form for something different. Something elegant, a refinement of the Resident Evil formula that made for a more grounded survival horror experience that tested player skills and pushed the original PlayStation to the limit. A game where the enemy wasn't the Walking Dead, but rather prehistoric beasts with an unquenchable thirst for blood. I'm of course talking about Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis opens up to a top-secret report from an undercover agent named Tom, where it turns out a presumed-to-be-dead scientist named Dr. Edward Kirk had not only faked his death, but has also been conducting less than ethical research on the behalf of a rival nation on Ibis Island, which the powers that be aren't too much of a fan of. So they send the Secret Operation Raid Team, or SORT, to drop in on the island, sneak past security, nab Kirk, and bring him back home all before dinner. Easy enough, right?
Wrong.
Things immediately go south as the team make landfall, and though our main character Regina is able to rendezvous with their squad mates, Gale the hard-headed leader, and Rick the tech-savvy jokester, their radio operator Cooper is stranded in the forest and, well, you get the picture. Reminds me of another Cooper I know. From here, we transition from pre-rendered FMVs to unskippable in-game cutscenes, and we're made aware of the fact that something is very wrong. The power is out and there are no guards anywhere in sight. Still, we make the most of the situation and move forward, taking control over Regina. And it's here where we're introduced to a few things, namely good old-fashioned tank controls and fixed camera angles, just like the earlier Resident Evil games. However, unlike those games, Dino Crisis utilizes fully 3D environments that are rendered in real time, a stark contrast to the pre-rendered backgrounds of other games of the era. This allows for far more interesting and dynamic camera angles, where the camera will actually follow Regina on occasion, instead of remaining stagnant, something that Resident Evil wouldn't adopt until Code Veronica. Father! But this technical achievement isn't without drawbacks. To put it bluntly, the environments in Dino Crisis are kind of boring. With the exception of a few standouts, most of the maps consist of bland, cold corridors of varying shades of gray and steel that all blend together more often than not. It can get pretty confusing, especially for a first-time player. Whereas the earlier Resident Evil games had a cavalcade of iconic locations like the RPD, Clock Tower, or every room in the Spencer Mansion, Ibis Island just doesn't stick the landing as much, which I feel may have been a limitation of the technology of the time, as the original idea for Dino Crisis saw Regina battling dinosaurs in a lush jungle forest. However, this idea had to be scrapped so as to not turn the original PlayStation into an IED. However, they would eventually revisit this idea in the sequel, but we'll get to that another time. Moving forward with the plot, after some investigation, Gale ends up finding a guard, or what's left of him, to which Regina responds with the most Regina response possible.
That's disgusting.
Spoken like a true sociopath. Honestly, I've always digged this opening section, this calm before the storm, because although the player knows shit's about to go down, to Regina and the rest of her team, minus Cooper, this is just another day at the office. They're nonchalant and just chewing the scenery because they've probably done this song and dance a dozen times over. But after Regina gets the generator up and running with the first puzzle of the game, everything is flipped on its head. Hearing gunshots alongside other not-so-fun sounds, she bursts out of the generator room, handgun at the ready, finding nothing but a pool of blood and a missing Gale. Attempting to find her fearless leader, she calls out his name. But instead of getting the attention of a brooding, no-nonsense military man, she's attacked by a 6-foot turkey with a thirst for blood.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Faced with a hungry velociraptor as the first enemy of the game, we're left with two options. Turn tail and run like hell, or stand and fight. Obviously, I chose to run, as Dino Crisis doesn't hold back any punches when it comes to its enemies. The raptors aren't sluggish roadblocks like the zombies of Resident Evil. They're living, breathing animals that hit hard and run fast. Even if you do turn and run, they're always right behind you in hot pursuit. And the worst thing is, unlike zombies, they can follow you through rooms, a fact that the game loves to remind you of. After narrowly avoiding a brutal mauling, Regina fills in Rick on the situation, which he surprisingly doesn't take too seriously at first, even cracking a joke or two before getting an earful from Regina.
Oh, now that's a good one. So, who was it, Barney?
This isn't a joke, you idiot. We were just attacked by a big-ass lizard.
Technically, they're archosaurs. Either way, we finally enter the facility, and this is where the game truly begins in my opinion. It's cold, abandoned, and without a shred of human life in sight. Just echoes of what once was, with the gut feeling that something is watching you. And with how the camera lingers, it's a feeling that's hard to escape from. I know the comparison to Jurassic Park is an obvious one to make. It was one of the main inspirations after all, but I can't stress how similar the two are in vibes, particularly the scene where Ellie Sattler is deep below the maintenance shed, slowly maneuvering through the cramped metal corridors all alone in the dark, with the threat of a raptor popping its head out of the shadows ever present. Like Dino Crisis, it's a tense and nerve-wracking thing, with an explosive conclusion leading to a thrilling dinosaur chase, which is in essence the core of Dino Crisis' gameplay loop. This isn't Turok. You aren't mindlessly slaughtering dinosaurs left and right. You're a survivor, first and foremost, utilizing your wits and resources to outmaneuver and outthink the island's prehistoric guests. Because try as you may, you can't outrun them, and you sure as hell can't outgun them. But just because the odds are stacked against her, that doesn't mean Regina doesn't have a few tricks up her sleeve. Regina can actually aim while walking, along with being able to do a 180-degree quick turn with the press of a button. Two features that come incredibly in handy in a pinch. And as Rick gains further access to the facility, Regina gets the opportunity to play with the security shutters, laser grids that you can activate at a moment's notice. They don't do any damage to the dinos as far as I know, but it's still pretty satisfying to see them run at Regina like a dumb dog, only to get shocked by the shutters. Again. And again. And again. It isolates any problem dinosaurs, but it doesn't eliminate them entirely, so you're gonna have to deal with them eventually, which really hammers in that strategic survival horror mindset. And nothing says survival horror like item management. See, Dino Crisis doesn't have universal item boxes where you can just chuck all your unwanted goods and pick them up someplace else. Instead, you have the emergency boxes that can only be opened with key items called plugs. Think of it like Storage Wars. You pay for the storage box, open it, and take whatever goodies you like and leave the rest. Said goodies could be anything from health items and ammunition to tranquilizer darts and anesthetics. Which brings us to the mix screen, a menu where you can play field chemist, mixing and matching healing items and anesthetics to create potent concoctions to bolster your limited arsenal, because weapon variety in this game is incredibly limited. You got your handgun, shotgun, and grenade launcher. Though you get upgrades for all of them eventually, that's all you're getting.
That's all there is. There isn't any more.
Anyways, after meeting up with Rick, we're given free real estate over the facility, or at least the parts we can access, because it is here where we were introduced the DDK or Digital Disc Key System. Instead of normal key cards that unlock different parts of the facility, we need to collect two different DDK discs, an input and a code disc that correspond to each other and open up an alphanumeric elimination puzzle, which is simple enough near the beginning of the game, but as things go on they become more and more complicated, and you end up feeling like a monkey at a typewriter. Either way, after snagging the first two DDK discs alongside a few key items, Regina has a chance encounter with a survivor at the head researcher's office. She lies as effortlessly as she breathes to the dying man, where she finds out that whatever happened on Ibis Island, Dr. Kirk is responsible. Oh yeah, and then a T-Rex breaks through the window and tries to eat her. Now, Dino Crisis doesn't have traditional boss fights like in Resident Evil, just glorified set pieces with the T-Rex, where you can either outlast it or shoot it until it gives up. It's essentially a glorified ammo sink, but it could be worse. After dealing with the Rex and delving further into the facility, Regina gets jumped again by a raptor, only to be saved in the nick of time by Gale, who miraculously survived his scuffle unscathed. I like to think he just suplexed the raptor Leon Kennedy style, because he's just that guy. Now that the whole squad, minus Cooper, is reunited, they reconvene the control room, where the first fork in the story takes place. You hear that right. Dino Crisis has branching paths in the narrative. We can either side with Rick or Gale. It's a novel idea that adds replayability, but the only main differences between the two is whether you want to use brains or brawn. Sided with Gale has you dealing with untold hordes of dinos, while sided with Rick has you dealing with a number of brain-scratching puzzles with infinitely less chance of mutilation and death. Full transparency, I never choose Gale, because this game is a survival horror and his ideas are liable to get you killed. With that in mind, this first choice of the game has you either searching for Dr. Kirk with Gale, who thinks the mission takes priority over everything else, or going with Rick to rescue Tom, the undercover agent from the beginning of the game. Since I have a heart and leaving one of our own behind is a dick move, I went off with Rick to find poor Tom, who is hanging on to life by a thread. So we do our best to get him to safety, dealing with a number of obstacles along the way, including but not limited to pissed off velociraptors, pissed off pteranodons, a suspiciously oversized elevator, and so many goddamn puzzles. Unfortunately, Tom doesn't make it, opting to sacrifice himself to save Rick. Shame we can't pick up his Uzi though, as a submachine gun would have come in clutch in this situation. Now that Tom's gone, the only thing we have left is finding Dr. Kirk, who's hiding somewhere deep within the facility. So we solve a puzzle to gain access to the lower levels and continue the investigation, finding more ammo, upgrades, and notes on what the hell happened here. Oh, and also this cool puzzle where we have to neutralize the poison gas in a sealed chamber in order to get a key item. And then we get to trap a raptor in said chamber and crank the poison levels over 9,000.
Ha! How do you like it?
Eventually, after completing another DDK puzzle, we discover Dr. Kirk's lab. Though the man is nowhere to be found in sight, it is filled with its fair share of oddities. But, like clockwork, there is another snag in the plan. Kirk ends up triggering a lockdown with two ways out of it, going with Gale and shooting our way out, or solving a puzzle to get the escape hatch open. Obviously, I chose Rick's idea, but be warned, this is one of those memory recognition puzzles. In any case, after going through the escape hatch, Regina ends up catching up to Dr. Kirk, with Gale following soon after. And here is where I have to be completely honest. I have to say the voice acting in this game is pretty decent, a very far cry from the hokiness of the original Resident Evil.
What is this?
Wow, what a mansion!
But by God, does Dr. Kirk's voice actor chew the scenery. And not in a good way. The man is hamming it up with the fakest British accent I have ever heard. It's like he's waving a sign and screaming, "I'm evil."
Can't do this. I have rights.
According to command, your government property, pal. I suggest you take it up with them.
No, they can't do this to me. They deserted me 3 years ago and now they want me back? This is preposterous.
And I also have to mention, this game sucks at audio mixing, with the music and sound effects often blaring over the dialogue, especially during the more dramatic moments. This is made worse by the fact that there are no subtitles in this game. Believe me, I checked. But now that the good doctor is in custody, we can call the mainland, tell them to send the damn helicopters, and finally get the hell out of here. All we need to do now is just... oh, for the love of God. Do you think when Regina went on this mission, she thought something like this might happen? Imagine the water cooler conversations after this. Like, "Hey James, how was your weekend with the kids? I was busy being chased by a T-Rex." Well, on the bright side, now that our ride's on its way, we make a mad dash to the helipad in style, dodging and weaving wildly inaccurate raptors and pteranodons and... you son of a bitch. Moving on from that little setback, Gale is off doing something, but the helicopter's here, Kirk is in custody, and all's well that ends well. And why does this remind me of... oh... yeah, you didn't think it'd be that easy, did you? With the helicopter fried and Kirk on the loose again, we have to once again survive the T-Rex, and what I have to say is the highlight of the game. The darkness of night illuminated by the blazing wreckage as we try our best to outrun this apex predator. This moment right here completely justifies the fully 3D environments, because you can't get this type of panic and horror with pre-rendered backgrounds. You can't kill or even hurt the Rex, so don't even try. Just wait for Rick to finish fiddling with the door controls as you run for your life. You know, an interesting thing about Tyrannosaurus Rex is that it couldn't run as fast as a Jeep, as Jurassic Park would tell you. Instead, they had a rather long stride, meaning they were basically prehistoric power walkers. Either way, Rick gets the elevator ready and we begin our descent down to the second half of the game, which is already off to a rocky start with a pointless detour. See, the elevator has some issues and we're forced off of it until we find a super specific note about a possible escape route. If we go back to Rick before picking it up, he'll just tell us to shove off. This part is very clunky and honestly kind of pointless. I know it's short, but it kills the pacing and could have easily been replaced with a cutscene of Rick accessing some files and finding out about the hovercraft that way. I don't know, but we make it down to level B3 and begin our final push to freedom. This is where the game will have you by the balls. Tougher enemies, tougher puzzles, you get the gist. Part of that includes these abominations. Therizinosaurus. Yeah, I know they look nothing like their IRL counterparts, but to be fair, this was the 90s when we thought they were carnivores instead of pot-bellied bird sloths, so I can't get too twisted about it. So props to Capcom for including them anyways. Along with the Therizinosaurs, we're also introduced to super raptors. Same as normal raptors, but super scary, right? Well, at this point in the story, we've accrued more than enough ammo and upgrades to make short work of anything that crosses our way. That's one thing I've always loved about survival horror games. You play it safe for so much of the early game, keeping tally of every bullet, every shell, every little item, collecting upgrades any chance you get, only to finally let loose at the last act. It worked for Resident Evil, and it works here. Kind of. Sure, you're able to dish out a fair bit of punishment, but remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. You may be a man-made killing machine, but violence is in these things' nature. So keep that in mind. Either way, we finally reach the control room leading to the port, but we don't have the access key just yet. But like clockwork, fate conveniently intervenes.
You copy, Mike? I found the key to the port, but I got a lizard riding on my tail. I'm heading to the main elevator right now. I'll meet it at the ground level. Hurry!
Sounds like we're not the only ones having problems.
You think Regina Snark is just a coping mechanism? After this mission, I'm pretty sure she's gonna need all kinds of therapy. Regardless, there are survivors out there that need our help, and it's our job to, and they're dead. Hey, remember that suspiciously oversized elevator from earlier? Well, that's one less loose end, I guess. With the T-Rex finally out of commission, we collect a few key items and make our way back to the control room, where we can finally unlock the path to the port and get out of there, and would you look at that, a goddamn space-time portal blocking our way. Well, I guess now is as good a time as any to bring up what exactly has been happening on this island. So throughout the game, you might have had a few questions. What was Kirk doing? Why is everyone dead? Why are there dinosaurs everywhere? And what the hell are these warp things we've been seeing? Well, turns out Dr. Kirk was conducting research on a powerful form of clean, renewable energy called third energy. What exactly is it? I don't know. But after faking his death and jumping ship, Kirk continued his experiments, pushing the envelope on his project until an incident occurred. See, the dinosaurs here aren't a result of cloning or any Jurassic Park nonsense. They're actually the island's original inhabitants, displaced from the Cretaceous and brought to the modern day by Kirk's lack of precaution in the pursuit of discovery. We learned this and more after apprehending Kirk once again. So in short, a couple hundred hungry and confused dinosaurs popped out of some portals and started tearing through defenseless scientists because Kirk was more preoccupied with whether or not he could rather than if he should. Basically, think Half-Life, but with dinosaurs. So now, according to Dr. Kirk, in order to neutralize the temporal vortex between us and freedom, we have to get the third energy generator up and running. But to do that, we need two parts, an initializer and a stabilizer. And here comes yet another crossroads. We can go with Gale's plan and fight tooth and nail to find the already completed parts, or go with Rick's idea to find the individual components and break our brains trying to put them together. Full disclosure, if you agree with Rick's plan, there is zero shame in looking up a guide. In fact, I recommend it.
Stop acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man. We're lost. No.
But either way, once you get the parts for the generator, there is no going back, because once Regina activates it, we're locked into the endgame. The vortex blocking the port is gone, but a massive shockwave rattles the facility, and in the chaos, Gale is crushed, and Kirk escapes, but not before having a tracker thrown on him. At this point, we've already lost Tom and Cooper, so we rescue Gale and drag him to the control room. With the end fast approaching and the facility crashing around us, we're given one last choice. The path to the port is clear and the hovercraft is ready to go, but Gale, even on death's doorstep, still insists on getting to Kirk. So it all boils down to this: let Gale go after Kirk and get himself killed, or knock the bastard out cold and get the hell out of there, but have your mission be a complete failure as the good doctor escapes. It's a tough choice, Or at least that's what I would say if it wasn't for a secret third ending. Remember that tracker Gale threw on Kirk? Well, if you side with Rick and knock Gale out, you can use said tracker to find Dr. Kirk and apprehend him at an underground helipad. Rick and Gale join up with us and we have a final showdown with the T-Rex before hopping onto the helicopter and turning it into a Thanksgiving turkey. And with the sun shining down on them, Regina and company finally escape Ibis Island with Dr. Kirk in custody. Their mission a success. And with that, we end Dino Crisis. But wait, it's not over yet. After the credits stop rolling, we get to see a mission debrief, where we learn the fates of all our favorite characters after the events of the game. Since I got the secret third ending, not only did Gale escape a tragic end, but Dr. Kirk is safe and sound in government custody. Tom, of course, didn't make it, and Cooper, well, you already know. And once the debrief is over, we finally get to the tried and true results screen, where depending on our actions, we're awarded a few goodies, such as new costumes and a new mode. Operation Wipeout, and to finally end things off, we're shown a very 90s still image of Regina clad in leather, saying, "We got mad skills." And with that, the game is finally over. What can I say about this game that hasn't been said already? It's a well-oiled machine that just leaves you at the edge of your seat. But at the same time, it's not perfect. No game really is. It definitely starts to have some pacing issues right around the final stretch, and enemy encounters, though tense, start to feel stale because of the lack of enemy variety. Then of course there are the game's many puzzles, which, challenging, often end up feeling both asinine and arbitrary. And though the choices presented to you throughout the story are a nice addition, they don't really change the overall narrative, with all but the final one being inconsequential in that regard. I know that was a lot of things to harp on, but truthfully, despite the flaws, not one of them could really put a damper on my enjoyment of the game. Because at the end of the day, Dino Crisis holds a special place in my heart. And why wouldn't it? It's a panic-inducing sci-fi thriller with guns, dinos, and a bombshell of a main character. It's just a shame that, for the most part, this game has been swept under the rug, with Capcom barely acknowledging it after a certain entry didn't do so well. For the longest time, all we had were references here and there, like a Regina skin in Dead Rising 3, a cameo in the Ace Attorney anime, and then there was Exoprimal, with the main premise being dinosaurs coming out of space-time portals causing havoc everywhere, which sounds awfully familiar when you think about it. And then there was this beauty who everyone thought was Regina, but turned out to be a completely unrelated character with a similar design and the same color palette. Why is Capcom like this? But it's not all gloom and doom. Capcom actually has been slowly acknowledging the fact that this series exists and has a dedicated fan base, because they've recently ported both Dino Crisis 1 and 2 onto PC via GOG. So if you ever wanted to try the game out for yourself, now you can. So with all that said and done, we can finally bookend this video. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate it. It took me a lot longer than I expected to finish this, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Hopefully my next project will come out a lot sooner. Until next time, have a great day, great night, and a pleasant tomorrow.